There are some Muslims amongst us these days who want to go around and say, oh, Islam was never spread by the sword. That's a blatant lie. It was spread many times by the sword. The Sharia was spread by the sword. The implementation of Sharia was spread by the sword.
And the Christians are kafirs. And you may say to yourself, no, they're innocent. No kafir is innocent. No kafir is innocent.
قد جبت والطاغوت في أرض الشام بعد هذه الأيام بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى. لا نرضى بغير الله ودين الله وسنة نبيه محمد بن عبد الله.
تكبير.
As a Muslim, that Islam is not that. Islam is peace, Islam is fraternity, but not terrorism and war.
When I've walked this floor, I used to live alone before I knew you. And I've seen your flag on the marble arching. Love is not a victory march, it's a cold and it's a broken.
Children are among the dead and wounded after gunmen opened fire on a bus carrying Egyptian Coptic Christians south of Cairo. What is interesting is that 2 days ago there was a warning issued.
Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot at someone who outdrew you. It's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not someone who's seen the light. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Glaube ich, ein wichtiges Signal an Sie, dass der Islam, so wie der Bundespräsident Wulff es gesagt hat, zu uns in Deutschland inzwischen gehört.
Whenever you're dealing with an apologist for Islam, or even a Muslim, and you bring up jihad, almost immediately they kick back to you, well, what about those terrible Crusades? Why, they're the moral justification for jihad. I mean, we're just as bad as they are, so let's not talk about jihad, okay? Let's talk about the Crusades. Well, what I would like to talk about here are facts. And it turns out I sat down and put together some work, and I created a database of some 548 battles that Islam fought, jihad battles against classical civilization. And this aren't even all the battles. It really doesn't say much about Africa and India, Afghanistan and all that. It's primarily the battles against the classical civilization of Rome and Greece. So, 548 battles is a lot, and it's too much to even comprehend. So I created something which I call a dynamic battle map, in which you have a display of the Mediterranean, and a white dot means that this 20-year period, that's a new battle. So every time the screen changes, it's 20-year period. The colors white turn to red, so you can see a history. This may seem a little confusing, but I think when you see it, you'll know exactly what I mean. And here it starts. Islam burst out of the Arabian Peninsula and immediately starts attacking the Middle East. And notice that it doesn't take long until they're crossing the Mediterranean and attacking southern France and Spain. Notice something here. Most people think of Islam, they think of Arabs, they think of desert. And yet here we see that Islam is projecting power throughout the Mediterranean. Notice how the little islands of the Mediterranean are getting hammered. The navy of Islam would attack coastal towns, kill, rob, rape, and then take slaves. So this whole battle map, as it unfolds, you're seeing slaves being taken. Over 1 million slaves were taken out of Europe into the Islamic world. That's something you don't think about much, but it's absolutely true. There were over 200 battles fought in Spain alone. And we also see, however, on the east coast in Turkey, that Islam is trying to break into Europe. Now what's going to happen is, in Spain, this ongoing fight that lasted for 400 years, the Christians are going to push back the Muslims. But now then what has happened over in the east is that Constantinople has fallen, and now then Eastern Europe is getting hammered. The jihad now comes to Eastern Europe. It's pushed out now of Spain. Northern Africa is now completely Islamic. The Middle East is completely Islamic. This is all jihad, relentless jihad. And why is it so relentless? Well, Muhammad was relentless in his jihad. And these people are good students of Islam, and so it's against the kafir, on and on. It was traditional that when the Sultan came to power, the brand new Sultan, he would immediately try to launch new wars, because he was going to be noted in his Islamic history as to how well he fought against the kafir. So that's what the jihad looked like over that time period, 548 battles. But remember, when you bring up jihad, people want to bring up the Crusades. So I also prepared a dynamic battle map of all the offensive raids of the Crusaders. Let's watch it and make a comparison. And so it begins. The Crusades enter into Turkey and the Middle East. Battles go on, but aren't there far fewer than you thought there might be? And here we go. The last battles are fought, and that is the end of the Crusades. So now then we can talk about some facts. Yes, there were Crusades, but notice they ended centuries ago, and jihad is being practiced today. Jihad has been with us for 1400 years. There is no comparison between jihad and the Crusades, certainly not a moral comparison. And when you're looking at the Crusades, remember, in one sense, all of the Crusades were defensive wars. Why? Well, as we saw in the first jihad map, it was Islam that came out of Arabia and conquered the Middle East, a Christian Middle East. And so the Crusaders were trying to free their Christian brothers and sisters from jihad. So there's no moral comparison at all. The motivation of the Crusaders was to free Christians. The purpose of jihad is to enslave the kafir. So the next time you hear somebody talk about, oh, those dreadful Crusades, you've seen some facts about the matter. Why don't you pipe up and tell them you know, you don't really know the matter.
My brothers, soon you will have to fight. You will have to kill other human beings. When that moment comes, when you must kill or be killed, remember my words. You are fighting not only to defend Vienna, but also to defend your faith and your traditions. You are defending your wives and children, your sisters, your brothers, your mothers and fathers, because if Vienna falls, Rome will fall. And if Rome falls, Holy Mother Church will fall. Defend your faith so that your children may be free to worship God, free to love Christ, free because you have fought on this day.
But I mean, like, if they not are attacking you, like, with violence and everything, why?
Something you didn't understand. As I said, peace treaty, or they pay jizya, or they become Muslim, or they fight.
He told us when ISIS captured Nineveh, they gave Christians 3 choices.
They are not allowed to open their churches, and even if they opened, they are going to burn the churches. And also the Christians being asked to pay the tax. If not, they can leave Nineveh, and if they didn't left and they didn't pay the tax, they should give their heads.
When you say give their heads, you're talking about being beheaded?
Yeah. Raise up prayers for us. This is what we need.
But I mean, like, if they not are attacking you, like, with violence and everything, why?
Something you didn't understand. As I said, peace treaty, or they pay jizya, or they become Muslim, or they fight.
ادعوهم إلى الإسلام فإن دخلوا الإسلام فكف عنهم لأنهم بقوا زيك أتقاتل المسلمين فإن أبوا فالجزية فإن رضوا فخذها منهم وكف عنهم خلاص كده فإن أبوا أن يدفعوا الجزية فاستعن بالله وقاتلهم ادي الثلاث خيارات اللي النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام قالها لمين؟ لقائد الجيش.
Say I give da'wah, yeah, for 40 years in the UK, or my grandchildren give for 50 years, my great-grandchildren give it for 70 years, whatever, and we give da'wah, yeah, for hundreds of years, whatever, and say we're now 20% of the population, 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 and say we're now 20% of the population. And let's just say we own a big part of the economy. And let's just say we have weapons and we have our own sections of the country, yeah? And we have military training and we have weapons and we can actually fight and overthrow the system, yeah?
And we have military training and we have weapons and we can actually fight and overthrow the system, yeah? And we have military training and we have weapons and we can actually fight and overthrow the system, yeah?
Then, okay, we have the means, right? So we will use the hand and we will take the power. And we will implement Sharia everywhere.
The non-Muslims say that Islam spread by the sword, so is that true or not? The Islamic government spread by force. The Islamic government spread by force. The expansion of the Islamic empire was done by force. There's no question about that. The Sahaba went and fought, took over other people's land, and that's how the Islamic Khilafah grew. Now, we sometimes, Muslims, try to for the sake of da'wah, we try to give an impression that, no, there is no violence that was used whatsoever. The Sahaba were not involved in any fighting. They didn't force anybody to give up their land or kingdom or whatever.
الإسلام انتشر بالسيف. إيران، تركيا، مصر، الشام، المغرب، بلدان المغرب.
Rasulullah said, الجهاد باقية حتى تقيم الساعة. The jihad will be everlasting even until the time comes, until the day of judgment comes. So the fighting is never to stop. Because we're supposed to conquer the world. Because we're supposed to conquer the world.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the believers in their mutual kindness, compassion and sympathy are just like one body. When any part of the body suffers, the whole body feels pain. New Zealand mourns with you. We are one.
Because we're supposed to conquer the world. 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 Because we're supposed to conquer the world.